Hi, I'm Katie Ziskind, the practice owner of Wisdom Within Counseling in Niantic, Connecticut. In this video, we'll go over a few important aspects to childhood trauma. So oftentimes children in a school system might be misdiagnosed with ADHD and be presenting with hyperactivity, not being able to sit still, being rowdy and rambunctious, making inappropriate jokes, when really this is a trauma response. A child might be running out of the classroom, not wanting to talk, not being able to make friendships, not being able to have friends, might be, doing the wrong thing or being too annoying. And this is actually a trauma response. So we'll go over 3 main points in this video, and you're always welcome to personal message me with any further questions. So we work here a lot with anxious kids, traumatized children who have a trauma history. So first, trauma is any event that causes nervous system arousal. So it puts a child's body in fight, flight, or freeze. So if a child's sexually abused, physically abused, watches maybe a grandparent pass away, there are many different aspects of trauma. So we have big T trauma, which is like sexual abuse or physical abuse. Then we have little t trauma with a lowercase t, which is can be just as emotionally challenging, but is more of like being bullied on the playground. It can have just as much of an emotional impact on a child. So trauma could also be parents getting divorced, watching parents fight, having an alcoholic fight, and that child internalizes the shame. So a traumatized child is going to respond differently to traditional disciplinary methods. So a traditional method would be punishment, like stop running or sit down or go to the principal's office. Yelling is not going to work because that puts a child's body in fight or flight. So a child might run out of the classroom or hide under a table or not really be able to respond in a present way to what's being asked. So this is where another problem occurs, is that children often won't listen. They can't actually learn in school until a trusting relationship has been built with a teacher. So we look at attachment when it comes to trauma and creating a nurturing, compassionate, and safe relationship within the school system. So that might mean a lunch bunch group with the school guidance counselor to really reinforce how to make a meaningful bond with someone. Because with trauma, it's very, very difficult for an individual to trust, to build attachment, because they're afraid of getting hurt. So you have to think of a traumatized child not as being disrespectful or not as trying to be the problem, but instead you want to think of a traumatized child as permanently in fear mode. So permanently in fight or flight, and you're just getting ripple effects. So another great important point is to prevent caregiver burnout, to have a good self-care plan. So if you're a teacher and you're working in a really challenging district, go home, take a bath, go to a yoga class, make a cup of warm herbal tea, read a book, do something after your day of work to release, because when children are disrespectful to you, it's hard not to take it personally, but you have to know it's not you, that they had a traumatic event happen before you got to them, and that's their shadow, that's their trauma history. And so for instance, trying to take a hat or a hood off of a middle schooler would probably result in a trauma response because the personal bubble is being invaded and that student is being put into fight or flight. So to calm a traumatized child, you want to ask before you touch. It's really important because touch has been violated. There hasn't been healthy touch or healing touch that's been taught. It's often been over-sexualized touch for a child, or violent touch or hurtful touch. So before you touch a child who's been traumatized, you always want to ask, may I give you a hug? It looks like you need a hug right now. Would it be okay if I hugged you? Even if they say yes or no, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you're giving them the power to speak up about their body. So that's really important, and that's also going to help build the therapeutic bond or that trust between you and your student or you and your child. Also, you can care but you also know that don't take it personally if they don't want a hug. It's just maybe you might need to ask 5 more times before they actually realize like that hug has no strings attached. So you want to really be genuine. If also too, a great thing to do is to read books about other children who've been through trauma, to help that child feel normalized, accepted, and safe. You know, that their story is okay. A really good book is called A Terrible Thing Happened. It's called A Terrible Thing Happened, and it's a children's book, and it is really validating for children who've seen something really challenging or really upsetting and might be having nightmares or bad dreams. So after trauma, a child's brain is permanently changed. So just like a addict's brain, a substance abuse addict, their brain actually changes. The chemistry of their brain changes after drug use. A traumatized child's brain, the structure of the brain, the neural pathways also are permanently changed. So you want to be, in trauma-informed care, you want to be aware that a traumatized child's brain is going to look very different and be interacting very differently than a child that doesn't have a trauma history. So when we look at a traumatized child's brain, the amygdala, which is, when I work with kids, I call this the bulldog, like the growl center, the anger center. The amygdala, because a child's brain's in fight or flight or freeze all the time, really stressed out, on edge, walking on eggshells, the amygdala actually becomes enlarged. The fight, flight, freeze response is overworked in the child's body, so much so that this part of the brain actually grows. So their defense mechanisms, they're on the prowl for danger. That response is on hyperdrive, meaning the relaxation side actually has stopped working. So the brain will forget how to relax if a child's always in a traumatic environment. So stressed out at school, going home and not getting hugs, and maybe sleeping on the couch and not getting needs met, or, you know, going through loss. All these different things change a child's brain. So we have to look at conditioning, because we're looking to actually bring back the parts of the brain that stimulate relaxation and safety. Meaning it's going to take time in therapy for a child to realize the world is trustable, the world is safe, and maybe not all men are going to touch me, or not all men are going to drink and smell like alcohol and yell at me at night. So for a child, it takes a long time to retrust the world. And so you have to think of trauma-informed care as this child's not just trying to break all the rules because they're trying to spite you. They're actually breaking the rules because they're really, really afraid and they don't know how to trust. So if you think of it from that end, it's a little bit more compassionate, and you're also more educated and informed when it comes to working with a child that's been through trauma. So if you're looking to learn more about how to work with traumatized children, how to be compassionate and understanding and create that safe space, and also how to prevent caregiver burnout, which is really common with a vicarious trauma. So that's when someone tells you a story of their trauma and you kind of start to take on trauma symptoms in your body. You want to really prevent caregiver burnout. That's probably the biggest thing when you're working with trauma. So if you have any questions, comment below. We're a group practice for holistic marriage and family therapy in Niantic, Connecticut, where we help anxious children, depressed teenagers, and distant young adults who are struggling with a first breakup or trying to make meaningful friendships. And we use creative art, yoga, music, and outdoor walk and talk sessions in addition to traditional talk counseling. We truly believe that you have everything you need inside of you already. The strength, the courage to get through this transition. However, you just need a little extra support. So those helping hands holding you up, helping you feel accepted, helping you develop that self-confidence for lifelong wellness in mind, body, and spirit. To read more, visit wisdomwithinct.com. You can also call or text to get started with a 15-minute phone consultation, 860-451-9364. I'm Katie Ziskind, the practice owner of Wisdom Within Counseling in Niantic, Connecticut. Hope you have a great day.